Welcome back, dear listeners, to Fright or Flight, the podcast where we rank, recap, and review every horror movie in a given franchise.
I'm Jumpscare Jared, the fright of the podcast.
And I'm Frankie, the flight of the podcast.
And I'm Bailey, and I'm just here. Again, for the second time in 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 times in a row.
Yeah,
Producer
I know.
Bailey's on the show.
Yeah.
That rhymed.
That did right.
Yeah, I did. You're a poet and you didn't know it.
Yeah. Oh my god, we're doing it still.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know I could impress you so easily.
But also, Bailey, this is not just you being here. You do more than just that.
Yeah, Bailey's
Yeah,
always
I'm
here.
always here.
But right now she's in front of the camera.
Yeah, normally I'm right there.
Yeah.
But I'm here
Yeah.
because today we're covering Twisters, the second movie in the new Twister franchise. Well, the franchise is new, the original movie is not. We just covered the original 1995 movie last week, so if you guys haven't seen that episode, you should totally check it out. But today we're going to cover Twisters with Daisy Edgar Jones, Glenn Powell, and Anthony Ramos. So we got to watch this movie in 4DX in Nashville, which was very, very fun. It was Geraldine's first time going 4DX. So what did you think about it?
It was fun. I didn't know what to expect. I thought it would have been like 3D plus, the stuff, but no. It's just the moving, and I really thought for a moment, I was like, oh shit, we're going to lose our drink type of thing because it
I
moved
thought
so much.
Too. It was a lot more violent than I remembered it being, but I mean, I say violent. It was very fun, but like it does jerk you around really.
Yeah, it is quite thrilling, and I think Twisters is like a good movie for it.
Oh yeah.
So if you've never seen 4DX, I think this one would be a good start.
Yeah.
It is a little distracting in some ways because you're so like concerned about like how it's going to move again. At least in my brain, as an anxious person, I was like, oh god, I don't want to lose my popcorn. What if I have to bend down for like a second to get my purse? And then like I was just thinking about stuff like that. Or like if I'm eating popcorn and it goes too fast, then I was like, scared I was going to lose it.
You're going to choke on your popcorn.
Something, I don't know.
That's funny because last week you were literally saying like, I need my popcorn to be all over the place and yada yada.
Yeah,
yada.
I need to twist my head off.
Yeah.
No, but it was really fun. It was.
Yeah,
I don't know what
fun.
I expected, but it was a good time.
I will say I take this as you will. This is a complaint. Go ahead. We're going to be talking about the plot of this movie. So, spoiler warning. If you haven't seen the movie, go watch it. It's a good one. It's fun.
Good.
It's worth the time. But, for example, it's something about the 4DX kind of affecting your experience. The beginning scene of this movie is very thrilling. And so the seats were moving. And it's also kind of emotional, though.
Yeah.
But because everybody having so much fun, at the end of the
Everybody
scene,
just laughing.
everybody was just like laughing and like having fun despite it being a little like...
To be fair, I will say that we've gone to 4DX multiple times and the theater has never been as packed as it was.
Yeah, people are coming out to see this movie.
There were a ton of people coming out to see this movie, especially in 4DX. So I think really it was a lot of people whose first experience was with Twisters, and so they were just laughing and giggling because they weren't used to it.
Patrick he does this every time we go to the film now, like anytime we go to the movies now. He'll check and like see how many seats are available. There's only 3 seats available in our theater that day.
Wow.
So if that tells you anything, it was packed to the brim, I would say.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh man, like it's full.
Well, the movie's doing fantastic. I mean, just this weekend alone, it's done 123 million globally.
I'm not shocked.
Oh, has it?
Yeah,
I'm not
123
shocked.
million. By the time we went, that night it finished at 80 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And so it's already made 123 globally. I think it's on a $150 to $200 million budget.
Yes.
So it hasn't met its budget, but I mean, it's almost there on just its first weekend alone.
Yeah. Over the weekend, just for North America, they were expecting it to make 50 million, but it actually made 80 and a half.
Yeah.
So it's doing some good metrics right now, and like you said, if it's at 123 million globally, then like they're definitely going to break even.
Yeah. Oh, they're going to far surpass it. I mean, you talked about it being a new franchise. I mean, you might be right. Like this might only be the second one, and more movies to come in the future.
I think so.
They definitely leave it in a good place to build on it, I think, and I think it would be fun to see.
I think so. I think it would be really fun to see the characters move on. We're going to talk about the elephant in the room. Twisters is not a direct sequel to Twister. It's more of a spiritual successor.
Soft reboot.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some elements from the second one that like you can easily tie to the first one, and there's some small references.
During the first scene with Daisy Edgar Jones' character, Kate Carter, we do see her having a pickup truck where she's got her sort of tornado experiment, and she also has another Dorothy. It looks like a Dorothy 5 that is a direct reference to Twister. So we know that this is taking place after the events of Twister, but none of the characters are related. None of the actual like cast comes back or anything like that, and there's not like direct like correlations in the story. We just get some nice references and stuff. So that's why we say it's more of a spiritual successor or a soft reboot. But hopefully we can actually get a real series with these as opposed to just being a standalone like the original Twister was.
Yeah, I did see that's one of the biggest complaints that I saw. I saw everybody's having fun with this movie, and for good reason. But the biggest complaint I see most often is just people being a little disappointed because they made such a connection with the characters from the original Twister that they wished some of those characters were brought on to return in this new
Or
one.
even like they did with the Ghostbuster to like tie it in, like make it like a continuation or have them be related to the original
I think
characters.
they did a
That would
great
have been
job.
fun.
Yeah.
They did.
And it did feel like there was a particular part of the story where it felt like it felt like they had wrote it in for Helen Hunt to walk in, and then it was not Helen Hunt. And it was a completely, it was a character that we had never met before. And so I was like, that's a little underwhelming. I have a feeling that they wanted it to be Helen Hunt, and then it just didn't work out that way.
I wonder
but
why.
I don't know if that's true.
Based on like last week, I did get the sense of like, maybe Helen Hunt might not want to do a movie like this at the point of her life that she's in right now. Because I'm sure doing this kind of tornado movie, it's kind of intense. You probably have to go. I mean, I know she went through a lot filming the first one.
Yes.
Yeah, but I know that with the technology that we have now, like they were able to do the effects and it looked really, really like well done. And I'm sure some of that could have been real because they were filming in Oklahoma as well. But I mean, I don't know. I just think that it would have just been cool, even if she didn't have to be in the tornado. Just her appear as herself, doctor or something.
It's interesting because I do wonder, like, the first Ghostbuster movie in 2016 with all the women had the original Ghostbusters just in like different roles. It wasn't a continuation of the previous roles.
Yeah.
So I don't like that as much as like if they are the original characters. So maybe that was the case. Maybe they were trying to figure out if this movie would make enough money to warrant like a comeback from any of the previous cast like Helen Hunt. And I'd rather have Helen Hunt came back. I'd rather see her as her character Joe, as opposed to like some random person in the movie.
Me too, and I think it might have also been kind of a hard call because we know Bill Paxton, of course, passed away in 2017, and forgive me, the actor
Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Which
passed
today's
away.
his birthday.
Oh my gosh!
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday!
Happy heavenly birthday, Philip Seymour Hoffman. I don't really believe in heaven, but I feel like he's there.
Yeah.
If there is one.
Yeah. Very tornadic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Swirled up there. But, he passed away in 2014. So those are really some of the core characters that people connected to in the movie. So Helen Hunt is really one of the few characters or one of the few actors that people are left to attach to. So I think maybe the directors or the studio just didn't want to kind of throw her out yet. They wanted to see how this was going to perform, maybe before they included her. Or maybe Helen Hunt herself was like, I don't want to be included in this, and it flops.
I mean, we talked a lot about it, not to bring up Ghostbusters for the 10th time this episode. We talked a lot about it. It's like some actors feel like they did their job with the movie and they're happy with it, and they don't want to come back to like, not disgrace what they've done before, but they're just set in stone and they're like happy with what they've already done and don't feel like they have the need to push it any longer.
I get that. I would have liked to have seen her. It wouldn't have hurt my feelings if they, did what they did now where she wasn't involved in it. But, I mean, even just to see a producer credit would have been cool, just to know that she was somewhere in the essence of the film, but she wasn't.
Maybe in the coming months we'll find out through like interviews or something, like what ended up being the situation, because honestly we just don't know. I did like how we got another like crew of like storm chasers, just like in the original.
Me too. And we got actually kind of two separate crews.
Yeah.
The initial crew that we're introduced to is Daisy Edgar Jones's crew. They look like they're young, college aged, maybe studying in university or just graduated university.
They're a lot more corporate.
Yeah. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking the first crew.
Oh, okay.
The ones who die.
Okay.
The ones who seem really excited by science.
Okay.
Yeah, the ones that remind us probably the most of, the original Joe Harding crew.
Yeah.
Really?
Right, from the movies.
I would say so.
I
The
got
energy.
Okay.
The energy is what I mean. Like, when you come into the movie, it's like what's selling you, like, the energy of the Joe Harding storm chasing crew, I would say. That's the crew that we get introduced to right in the beginning. Of course, almost all of them pass away because of a horrific tornado. Yeah, awful.
It was an intense scene. Like you mentioned, right after we were all like, after that, because we were being jolted around and stuff, and then everyone was laughing because like it was their first experience.
Yeah.
I was in the same boat where I was like, oh my god, this is crazy.
Meanwhile, 3 people had just died in the movie, like the 3 best friends, the boyfriend died.
Yeah.
I will say it did set the tone. I mean, great
did.
opener.
Yeah.
It was really fun, but also like it was like, this is serious.
Yeah.
This movie is about a serious subject.
Yeah.
And again, it's following kind of the same pattern that the original Twister movie did, where the original Twister movie started off with Joe's father, of course, being sucked into a F5 tornado.
Right.
So it was kind of a successor to that, but they upped the ante a little bit more.
They really did, because in this one, it wasn't just an accident. I mean, I could see how
They were out there.
Kate could feel like she had a hand in their deaths, because it was her project to get her grant.
I thought it was silly because, Kate and her boyfriend at the time, they go under an overpass. And before they go under the overpass, Kate is like, no, it's not safe. It's like the worst place to be in our tornado. But then they're like, we're going to go under there anyway.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
they were just explaining away.
I really like a lot of the stuff that they do in this movie. I mean, I mentioned it the last episode where like I felt like I learned some stuff about tornadoes.
Yeah.
And this movie I feel like doubles down on it too, where like I if you didn't know about the overpass thing, you get to see it firsthand.
Yeah.
So now you know. And I think it does teach audiences a little more about how to be safe during a tornado.
But it's also hard. I feel like it's a relatable situation to watch because, like, in the moment, you may not be thinking right.
Yeah.
Right. But let's talk a little bit more about the cast that we have in this movie. Like, we already talked about our main 3 stars, which are Daisy Edgar-Jones, Glenn Powell, and Anthony Ramos. We also have Brandon Perea, Maura Tierney, Harry Haddon-Patton, Sasha Lane, Daryl McCormick, Kiernan Shipka, Nick Dodani, David Cornsweat, Tunde Adebim, and Katie O'Brien. Forgive me if I said any of those wrong. We also have a cameo of James Paxton, who is Bill Paxton's son. He was a disgruntled hotel guest.
I thought that was him. That was him.
Yeah, the disgruntled hotel guest, and I think he's the one that gets swept up in the pool.
It was
No,
I think he
or
was
was
like
he
the main guy that drove away in his
Oh,
truck.
okay. Then he's the one that got into the truck and drove
With his
away.
family, yeah.
So rest in peace. his
Great
character.
performance.
Yeah.
I thought it was a good performance. And there's
Yeah.
another scene right there where like 2 people, one person's complaining during a tornado,
Yeah.
and this girl's like, "It's a tornado warning," but that 9 times out of 10 it doesn't even do anything. And
I would say in Tennessee that might be true.
oh yeah, but you better safe than sorry.
Right. In this movie.
Yeah.
I will say typically in like Oklahoma and like flat plains, tornadoes are usually not as much of a concern. They're usually weaker over there, and also there's so much flat land where nobody is living there. It's all just like farmland. People aren't quite as concerned about it as much. Whereas here in the South, we have more impactful tornadoes. Typically, because of storm reasons.
Interesting. I could see also like how this movie is kind of trying to tell you, if you get a tornado warning, take it seriously.
Yeah, for sure. But I saw a clip where Anthony Ramos was actually talking about, they went to Oklahoma to film, and he said that when he showed up, they were like hanging out in like the film trailers or whatever, and he was talking to like the directors and so, and like the wind was really high wind and it was getting stormy, and he was like, do we need to like go somewhere? And they were like, no, this is normal. So people just are, when that's your normal weather, you get used to it.
Yeah.
I was having this conversation with Patrick because we were talking about how they measure the tornadoes and how you had mentioned like they don't really know until after the fact. And so we were like, so what happens if it's like one of those tornadoes in like the middle of a field where there's no damage happening, and it's just like damaging to the land, but it's not damaging anything like, buildings or infrastructure. And we were like, how does that get determined? Because like in Tennessee, we don't have a lot of those blank spaces, especially now they're building shit everywhere. But like in Oklahoma,
We
like,
do
how
have
they
farmland, but it's more hilly here typically.
But I was just wondering, like, we were just curious about about that. I don't know if maybe you had done more research
Well,
on
there's
that
still
as well.
there's still like barns and stuff like that in Oklahoma that they can pick up, and they still like can. I mean, they can rip up trees in the ground and like piles of dirt, fences, etc., hay bales, all those things. So they determine all of that, and you can see typically the path that a tornado takes. You can see how much like wreckage it's made because you can see the path on the ground. And they use all of that along with like the wind speed and the Doppler radar and stuff like that to figure out after the fact what the rating would be.
Also, I heard in both of the films they refer to them differently. So I know that we mentioned in the first film it was like F as the Fujita scale, the F, and then lately I've heard EF.
Yeah.
So what is the EF?
So according to Google, EF is more recent and it just takes into more variables than the original F scale. So.
Oh, okay. Enhanced Fujita scale.
Yeah. Checks out. I have a clip here, and it's Glenn Powell in a short interview talking about what it was like to dive into the world of Twister, which he grew up on. He grew up on 90s movies. And his relationship with Bill Paxton, because they were relatively close.
Oh.
It's like a blast, right? I mean, the coolest part about this movie is, for me, I grew up on movies of the 90s when summer blockbusters were everything. They were adventurous, and they were thrilling, and they were romantic, and they were funny, and they were just, you left the movie feeling different, and that's what this movie delivers. It's really like such a throwback of a movie, and I think we deliver on all those fronts. So I'm just excited for people to show up and experience it. Bill Paxton is a guy that I got to be very close with. You know, he was part of this journey. I met him on a movie called Red Wing. He really helped me prep for Hidden Figures. You know, he was so passionate about Apollo 13, so I called him when I was prepping for that to really understand his love for space, which he talked about on set. And the other thing he talked about on set was meteorology, and he looked at the sky differently than anyone I've ever met. And so to like feel like I was kind of like retreading in a world that he was so passionate about was really special.
Makes me want to cry.
That's so sweet too. That like he has a connection, like a real world connection to like his film franchise now.
Yeah.
I will say I did feel the
Glenergy.
yeah. Well, yeah, Glenn Powell. But I mean, I almost felt like not that he embodied Bill Paxton, because like Bill Paxton was Bill Paxton. I did individually himself. But like I did feel like a lot of love went into this, so it almost felt like his presence was still there, even though he wasn't. And also we get his son, so that's another double whammy. So I don't know.
I definitely think that they had his essence was like a core part of the movie, and I mean Kate, I think actually is a great parallel to Bill. They even share some lines when I don't know if you remember, but when Bill comes to Joe's team with the divorce papers in the original movie, all of the team is excited to see him, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, Bill, you're back!" And he's like, "I'm not back."
Yes, I did pick up on that, and it was really, really nice because I was like, "Oh."
Yeah, it was nice. And then Kate, similarly, when Javi introduces her to the team, they go like, "Oh my gosh, Kate, you're back!" Or somebody says that.
Anthony.
I think Anthony says that
Javi.
to Kate, and she goes, "I'm not back." So and they do similar things. Like Kate can like sense the weather, just like Bill could in the original movie. So there's a lot of parallels there. I think that they were trying to definitely tie the two characters together in a respectful way.
It sounds like Glenn Powell has a lot of respect for Bill Paxton and just the legacy of the films, and so I think that alone influences his performance. And I think all three of them. I mean, I also really like. We haven't talked much about it, but the other parallel of like there being like another two teams, and one of them like wears these uniforms, like Anthony Ramos' character, he has all this stuff and he worked for the military, he has these prototype machines, versus, oh my gosh, like just like country, like wrangle the tornadoes. I love that. And I gotta say, like, so much of this movie was fun to me because of the team. I was like, another thing, this soundtrack is like completely country music.
It's
so fun.
I had a specific part of this dedicated to just the soundtrack that I wanted to talk about, so I guess we'll go ahead and talk about it now. The soundtrack is phenomenal. It's amazing. If you haven't listened to the whole thing back to back, you definitely should. It is so good. But we've got literally like a star-studded list of country artists for this soundtrack. We've got Luke Combs with the Ain't No Love in Oklahoma song.
Right.
And that's crazy. I'm hearing it everywhere. Miranda Lambert, Lainey Wilson, Bailey Zimmerman, Tyler Childers, Shania Twain. They
Hell
got
yeah.
her for this soundtrack. Jelly Roll.
He's doing
Nice.
the credits.
He does. Yeah. Megan Maroney, who I love. She's like an up and coming country artist. She's
Yeah.
amazing. They even got Mason Ramsey,
Yeah.
the yodeling Walmart kid.
Yeah.
They got him in here because he's starting his genuine country music.
And it's just
career.
so fun every time they step into that red truck.
Yes.
And like how they like talk to each other
Yeah,
and like this
it's great.
energy is just fun.
It's good. Going back to the soundtrack, I just wanted to say I saw an interview with Jelly Roll talking about it during the premiere, and he said that they put together a soundtrack that record labels in Nashville couldn't even put together. So like,
Yeah.
it's crazy. It's crazy good.
Yeah.
You know,
And,
to
you
me,
can feel
like,
the energy.
being born and raised in Tennessee, I know that country is, you know, the thing that people think of the most with Nashville and Tennessee. I don't like country music, but I did have a fun time with the soundtrack. I will say that. It did add something to it, but I also, even like apart from that, like the cinematic like orchestra soundtrack was
Yeah.
beautiful. I was like, wow, I am feeling all of the emotions that I'm meant to be feeling.
And the soundtrack in the original Twister is one of the standout parts of the
agree,
movie.
the
I
score.
think. Yeah, and they really brought that and tied that in such a
Yeah.
great way.
Especially in a time where like we don't hear scores like that anymore.
Exactly.
At all. And like
Exactly.
to see that back, I miss it. And I feel like Clint Powell was saying, this just has so much of that energy from before. And even if it in its themes, like sure, it's updated in that like in this movie, Carrie Elwes's like counterpart doesn't die randomly for no reason. There's like a redemption of a character instead, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But it's still straightforward. It's still
It
you
is.
understand everybody's relationships,
Yeah.
and you understand everybody's motives.
Yeah.
Which I
Yes.
miss in movies.
Yeah, I will say I was editing our episode of Twister the other day, and I thought it was really funny because we talked about like, oh, we love Joe's character because she's so like, no, I'm traumatized, but I'm gonna get into it. I'm gonna chase this thing. I'm not scared of it. And then we made fun of the idea of a movie being like, oh, I'm a girl and I'm scared and I'm traumatized and I need a man to show me how to do it again. And this movie does kind of fall into that, unfortunately.
For the
but
first
it's
half.
good.
For the first half.
But it's good, and it feels good, and it feels wholesome, and they don't like make it too awful cheesy. I mean, the characters don't even kiss for the romance part. So.
And I'm mad about it.
No, it's a slow burn.
Really likes the slow
okay,
burn.
but
I
they
do.
also shot a cut of it where they did kiss, and I'm mad about it because
Damn.
Steven Spielberg said nah, and I'm like, Spielberg, we deserved the kiss.
I get it. I get it.
But I also like the slow burn because at the end it was more fun. Like they just
Yeah.
both have such a passion for the same thing, and
Yeah.
they're both passionate for each other.
I think if they kissed in the movie, it would cheapen it just a little bit.
Even
but
just
if
a
we
peck.
get it, if we
Just
get
a
it,
peck.
if we get it in the second movie, though, it'll feel good.
It is true.
Deserved.
Talking about it, no kiss or kiss, the chemistry was there.
It was
Yeah.
so
The
tense.
chemistry
Yeah.
was there.
But okay, that's a thing that everyone's talking about. Glenn Powell himself is so good at creating chemistry with anybody. I don't care who it is, anybody. I watched I grew up watching him on Scream Queens, and he had such good chemistry with Emma Roberts, Ariana Grande, Leah Michele, and Niecy Nash. Hilarious. And Jamie Lee Curtis. Like his
Wow.
character gets with Jamie Lee Curtis, and it's hilarious. Like he's just a himbo in that show, but a lovable himbo asshole as Chad Radwell. But in anything that I've seen him in, even Anyone But You, I know that you have criticisms of Sydney Sweeney. I don't. I'm a fan. I think that they did have a really nice like enemies to lovers trope. It was just very well done. And like if he looked at, chemistry would be off the charts. He's just too good.
He seems like a chill guy.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of stuff. Apparently, he brings like his parents come with him to a lot of stuff. And,
Oh, really?
Yeah, and like while he's filming, his parents will show up. He's very close to them.
Oh, that's sweet.
And like the entire cast of Twisters knows his mom,
That's
because
cute.
she would always show up. And I've heard very good things. Everybody seems to really enjoy Glenn, and in general, this cast seems to have gotten along very well with each other. The Twisters official TikTok channel has a lot of like behind the scenes stuff that they were using to promote the movie, and it just seemed like they were having so much fun.
That's fantastic.
Genuinely.
I like that. I know one of the biggest things I was worried about with this movie, I talked about it last podcast, but like how the effects, we talked about visual effects nowadays looking a little weightless, and I didn't feel like that was the situation in this one. Like it did, I think they did a good job.
It felt real. Yeah, they didn't overdo it, I don't think, at any point.
It felt scary. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, it felt really, really good. And, you know, we've been talking about how it's similar to the original movie. I also wanted to touch on the science, because Twister, the original film, obviously has its own, like, Hollywood magic. They exacerbate some circumstances to play them up for the movie in Twister, but for the most part, they were heavily, heavily detailed in, like, the actual science of storm chasing. They listened to the storm chasers and meteorologists who helped them when they helped give them advice when they were making the movie. And it seems like the same thing happened in Twisters, this film, where actually, I mean, we noticed it during the movie. They use so many meteorological terms, and they're explaining how the tornadoes work.
Yeah.
And it's a bunch of science that I don't understand and I'm never going to, but they were talking about it. And I've heard from many meteorologists videos and articles that I've seen where they have been genuinely like, yes, this is how it works. This is what we're talking about. They're even using the technology that we use, etc.
I love that.
Yeah, I love that too. I mean, in the first one, we talked about storm chasing a little bit, but when we first get introduced to Kate after all the events in like the prologue of the movie, we get to see her working at a job in New York, working in weather.
She's actually a NOAA, N-O-A-A, meteorologist. So, and that is the organization that these movies are using for advice.
And I think that scene does such a good job of making that job look cool.
Yeah.
Because I'm like that, and I'm like, oh, that does look like it'd be fun to do.
Yeah.
But also, she's so good at her job that they still go to her for like, would you call this? Would you call a warning out for that? And she's like,
no, it's gonna die.
Yeah, that's another thing that they push in this movie, where like both Kate and Tyler have like this like natural instinct.
Yeah.
Of like looking out into the sky and being able to tell what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that.
Better. Kate's better.
One of the cool things about it, and I did see the parallel, was that Bill Paxton's character, Billy, in the original Twister film, he picked up sand and like let it blow away so that he could, take a look at the wind pattern. And she did that with a daisy? Daffodil? Dandelion.
Yeah.
I don't know, one of the D's. She did it with a dandelion, and like Tyler Owens was like, oh, I know that. I did that when I was a boy. Like, shut up, first of all.
It was so silly.
It was, but
very silly.
I thought it was just cute. They're like banter, like, I hate you, now I love you. It was just cute.
I thought it was good. I thought it was well done, too. It wasn't overly cheesy.
Yeah.
There was even the theory that Kate had with the sort of using moisture-absorbing chemicals to destabilize a tornado and make it disappear. Theoretically, the NSSL and NOAA have said that, that should work. Like, that would do the thing.
So why don't they do that then?
Well, so the scientist and tornado consultant that they used from the NSSL, who was Kevin Kelleher, he's quoted with saying that it's a matter of scale. To have any sort of effect remotely like what happens in the movie with the tornado absorbing all of the materials and disappearing, they would need 22,000 tons of it, which you obviously could not just back onto a pickup truck's trailer and drive into the storm. So it's pretty much science fiction at that point, is what he was saying. Theoretically, yes, it works. We just don't have it. We don't have any feasible way of having a way to transport that much into the middle of a tornado.
So that's just for the movie.
Yeah.
What about what like Javi's team was doing and like mapping out?
Yes, actually. So those sensors are kind of a real thing that real scientists use out in the field, but the real ones are like giant. They're huge. When Javi's introducing the sensors, he says that they're new portable versions of what the military has, but we don't have portable versions in real life, really. They're not anything that you could put into like a van's like hatchback or something like that. The real ones are much larger, and they need their own generators to power themselves. Yeah, so
maybe in the future.
Maybe in the future. They are based in reality to some extent, but of course Hollywood is going to exacerbate or...
That's really cool though, like in theory that they could like make a 3D kind of...
Yeah, and who knows, this movie might be set in like 2078. I'm sure Oklahoma in that year will still look the way it was now, so could be the exact same.
Yeah.
Or it'll be just buildings everywhere because they won't fucking stop building things.
Or it'll all be owned by the Pioneer Woman. You guys are laughing, but they like the Pioneer Women's family. They
Are
own.
they buying up land everywhere?
No, yeah, they own most of Oklahoma because
What?
they own.
I
They
didn't
own like
know
ranch
this.
Is this a
land.
conspiracy?
No.
She's trying to build her own community and be like the leader.
Yeah, the Pioneer Woman's family owns at least 433,000 acres of Oklahoma,
Jesus, why?
which
So they
is
own
a
nothing.
no. That's it's still a huge.
Yeah, but I mean, what's on it?
Exactly, it's all
Nothing.
flat land. It's
Yeah.
for them to move their cows around. But anyways,
To create their own pioneer community.
Probably.
yeah, her and her like 6 kids. Here's a clip of Daisy Edgar Jones speaking about what Twisters is about at its core and what it was like working with Glenn Powell.
Twisters, in essence, is a film about community and a shared love and passion for something. Every member of the cast and every member of this, or every character in the script has got a similar drive and passion for, this thing and this idea of chasing something that's larger than you. And I think when you listen to videos or podcasts by real chasers, there's this need kind of as a human to face something so much bigger than yourself and so much huger. It really puts you into perspective, I think. So yeah, I would say Twisters is a film about shared passion. Glenn is phenomenal. Glenn Powell, he's been so much fun to work with. I love having a front seat watching him bring this character to life. He has such swagger and is also able to play such like vulnerability and truth.
When are we gonna have a conversation of all these British people stealing American acting roles?
I think it's going to be a long time before they start caring about that, honestly.
It's funny. I always love watching interviews. I mean, one of the funniest ones for me is like for anybody who watched Parks and Rec.
Yes.
There's like a cast interview with Aziz Ansari, and when it gets to his part to like answer a question, he starts speaking in like a British accent, and then the cast starts laughing, of course. And he did that because he says it always blows his mind when he sees like an interview and like somebody speaking in like a completely different accent than their role, and they just weren't expecting it.
Yeah, I had that with Daisy Edgar Jones.
Yeah,
'cause
I
didn't know that she was from London.
I forget because
Which is good.
My first experience with her was watching this movie called Fresh that I would absolutely love to cover on the podcast because it is a wild fucking ride. It's great. She was great in that film, but she also had an Americanized accent. So I always forget until I hear them speak in interviews, and I'm like, oh shit, forget about that.
She's very English.
Very.
Yeah, but I think her American accent's really good.
Yeah, I would have thought she was
even
American.
that slight twang that she had was perfect.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, it's not overwhelming, but it's just right.
Other ways that Twisters is a spiritual successor to the original movie Twister is through these sort of little references that it makes to the original film. Stormpar's team has different trucks, and each truck is given a different name based off of the Wizard of Oz. So much like Dorothy, we now have the rest of the cast of Scarecrow, Tin Man, and Lion.
That makes sense.
Did you not? You know what's even cooler? The truck that Daisy Edgar Jones is in with Javi in the towards the beginning of the movie is the lion. And I knew just because they were in the lion truck, I was like, she's gonna be scared because the lion's cowardly.
Oh, okay.
And if you notice, she steals that truck and takes it home. And it's not until like she officially goes into Tyler's truck that she stops being afraid of the storms.
Oh.
Yeah, so she's being the cowardly lion up until a certain point, which I thought was really it was a nice touch.
That's
It was a
cool.
nice touch.
That's cool.
That went over
Yeah.
my head.
Me
I'll
too.
be honest.
I mean, even the naming convention.
Well, I knew the
I thought it was
naming.
like, oh, it's cool. The Tin Man. I can remember this.
Yeah, similarly, I think the guy character who never approved of Daisy that was
Yeah.
on his team, I think he was in the tin can truck. I think, and the Tin Man needs a heart, right?
Ah.
So, or
Okay.
if he was in the Scarecrow one, then it's because he thought of his brain. Like he was always thinking with his brain and not
Right.
with his heart. I don't know. But anyways, it's some cool references.
I like it.
Yeah, it was nice. Tyler, speaking of his truck, he drives a big red pickup truck just like Bill does in the original, and it's a Dodge Ram, just like the original one was. Obviously, it's a newer model version of it, but it's still, a red Ram truck. The final tornado of the movie ends up demolishing a part of a movie theater, which is an homage to the drive-in scene in Twister because it, damages a drive-in movie
That's fun.
theater. It's just, this one's in the day and it's like an actual brick and mortar
I like it. It's so fun because you're in a movie theater.
Yeah,
and you're
yeah.
watching
Adds
it.
to the immersion.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Yeah.
like your
It-
screen's getting pulled away.
It does, because I saw it on Twitter, someone was like, my face when Javi said, this movie theater's not built to withstand this, and they were like, and I was
Yeah.
like, yeah.
It was
that's-
crazy.
That's pretty good.
And also another thing that I found out was that I don't know if this was on purpose or not, but it feels intentional. There was a really bad tornado in December 2021 in Mayfield, Kentucky, which is only a little bit more than an hour away from here. So very close to where we lived. It was awful, and had unfortunately a lot of fatalities. But there was a movie theater that was affected where it pulled out the screen, and I've
Wow.
got photos that I'm going to include in the video I'm showing Frank and Geraldine right now. But it looks eerily similar.
That is so odd.
Yeah, it
That
looks
is.
crazy similar to what
It
happened
looks
in the movie.
I thought these were pictures from the movie.
I
No,
thought so too.
it's not. This is in Mayfield, Kentucky, which again is an hour away.
Well, I hope nobody was in that theater.
But yeah, so that's crazy
Yeah,
how
it is
similar
crazy,
it looks.
yeah.
And yeah, like
It almost
you were
looks like
saying,
it would have just been like the movie set. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
It's wild and crazy how it was so close to us too. I remember when that tornado came through and it was terrifying, and we just kept hearing more and more about the damage in Mayfield.
Looks like
so-
a bad nightmare.
Yeah, it was real bad. Why'd you say it like that? It sounded like you were joking about it.
I'm not gonna lie, when you said there were a lot of fatalities, which I take very seriously, yes.
Yeah.
But all I could think about is a movie scene from This Is the End, where Jonah Hill, because they had like this like big crazy end of the world type of movie. If you haven't seen it, it's one of my favorite comedy films. It's so funny. But Jonah Hill's character was like, there were a lot of fatalities.
You may want to stay seated for a second. Some really messed up stuff happened, and there were a lot of fatalities.
That's what my brain thinks
I see.
of. It's horrible, but that's where my brain
It's
went.
okay.
So I promise I'm not
What's
making
their-
light
what's their
of
fault?
it.
What do you think about the people that died in Kentucky?
Stop.
Kentucky?
don't do that.
That's where this took place.
No,
No.
the Mayfield tornado is what he's talking about.
Yeah, in Kentucky.
I didn't know. I don't remember it, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
I'm still processing
Yeah.
2020, so I don't know.
Yeah, you didn't pay attention to tornadoes except for the past year, I feel like, either.
Yeah,
So.
I mean, not that I didn't like take them seriously. It's just like sometimes you get desensitized, and
Yeah.
it kind of just
Yeah.
you're like, oh my god, it's really sad. But then unfortunately, you just kind of move on to the next thing,
Yeah.
which is horrible to say.
No,
but
I
it's
get
not
it.
that it's but.
And
Until
that's
it
all you can
happens,
do.
it really is hard to like put it into perspective until it happens in your area, and then
Yeah.
now I'm like, I'm gonna be really like about
On
them
top
now.
of it. Yeah. That's okay. It happens. But did you know, actually, that during the last tornado in the movie, the same one that messes up the theater, the visual effects team sneaked in a flying cow?
No,
way.
It's really hard to see, but apparently I've heard the director say that, they saw it in the showing and they didn't know that it was going to be there. But that is very hard to see. So Geraldine's going to go and see the movie again. She'll have to tell us
Oh my
if you
God,
can
yes,
see
I
it.
am.
So you got to remember during that last
I
scene with
forgot
the
that I've
last
seen it
tornado,
again.
you just got to keep looking for a flying cow and see if you can find it.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna
But
have
obviously-
Patrick. I'm gonna have Patrick on it too, because Patrick's better about that
Yeah.
stuff than I
I
am.
wonder why they didn't make like a big deal out of it, because I feel like that's one of the most memorable parts.
Yeah,
Right?
I think they were really trying hard not to make it too corny. I think that's what they were trying to
okay.
do. But
That's
we
fine.
don't mind if it's a little corny.
I
We don't have
wonder
to
why
like
they did
him.
the cow.
Yeah, we wouldn't.
I
have
mean, I
minded.
don't want anything to happen to the. I knew it was
No,
a fake cow.
it would
but-
fly and it would land on its feet and it'd be fine.
Yeah, then it'd be ground beef again
Yeah.
because it's on the ground.
Yeah.
Here's some more fun facts that I've collected. The Washington Post's weather team, because they have their own weather team, remarks saying that the film's Tyler Owens character reminded them of a mix of Reed Timmer, who is an extreme meteorologist. He's known to have shot rockets into tornadoes. And stuff like that. Yeah, but he's actually a meteorologist too, and has like a crazy like car that's like built up like a tank. So
Nice.
he might be on some of those TV shows for storm chasers, and a mixture of Reed Timmer and Ryan Hall, who we
Nice.
mentioned
Yeah, last episode.
that we love because he's
Yeah.
in like our area and he streams a lot of weather stuff to keep people weather aware on Ryan Hall, y'all, right?
Yeah, he's
So-
he's my favorite weather guy.
Yeah.
What's funny though is that like it just they modernize it to a sense though, because he's like a YouTuber who's
Yeah.
famous.
Yeah.
That's how they
Yeah.
make his character. And I think it's so funny because he's like the way that they shoot it a lot of the time, like they're doing like their little live streams and little videos. I just think it's so funny. It almost makes me think back to like Thanksgiving when they include stuff like that to make it more modernized and to appeal to our now generation. I don't know. It just made me giggle a little bit because I was like, oh yeah, we're doing like a little live stream, and he's like, we're gonna shoot some fireworks into the tornado, and like their little tornado wranglers.
Love it. It's so fun. Like I said, it feels like you're on the ride with them.
Yeah.
And you're just having a good time.
Yeah. I don't know why I wasn't expecting this when we started actually watching the movie, but when Anthony Ramos's character Javi gets Kate to come back to storm chasing, and it's very corporate and all of this, I was like, oh, they're just showing us how updated everything is. I wasn't really thinking about what the theme was of all of these storm chaser groups and how they were rivals with each other. I just assumed, like, oh, Kate's with Javi's a good guy.
Yeah.
And, and they're really painting these, like, assholes who are being really reckless. Yes. They're painting them and being like, hey, don't be reckless. That's really bad. You're profiting off of people's, like, pain and suffering, essentially, in some way, shape, or form. But I love how they flipped it, actually, because Tyler's team was always very fun to watch in the movie. So you kind of felt like you were rooting for the bad guy in the beginning. Yeah. But then they flipped it and they were like, well, actually, like, Javi is a good guy, but they're not doing the best that they could do to help support these communities. Whereas Tyler and his team are actually like, yes, they're doing all of this stupid stuff that they probably shouldn't be doing, but the profits they're giving back to the communities that are affected.
Loved it.
Shirt sales are giving off free food, etc. They're helping these families instead of potentially taking away. And
it just goes to show you how we're so quick to judge as well.
Yes.
And, like, even though they're being reckless, they're just really in the storms because they have a passion for it, too, which is really fun.
And they know what they're doing.
Exactly.
And, a lot of them had actually studied in meteorology. Yeah. We get some female storm chasers there, which is really awesome, who actually get more speaking lines than some of the female storm chasers in the original Twister film.
And the girl with the drone, I forget her name in the movie. I think it was Lily. Was that?
Yes, I believe it was Lily.
And then we get the other character. We didn't get to know their names a lot of the time. We really knew Boone and we knew Lily, but he was the black character who wore the really cute little bucket hat type thing. He was always talking about like the science behind it. I was like, he's just so precious. I love him.
Yeah, I love the group. The crew's great.
Yeah.
And I, talking about the thing about like misunderstanding, like intention or whatever, I think you could say that on both sides. Where like it's while there's a perspective of with Stormpar in that like, oh, they're just these corporate guys who are in it for the money. Well, Javi here does have good intent, and this is going to help the community to some extent too.
Yes,
and maybe at a greater scale. Than the tornado wranglers can.
It's just
it's just different levels, and it's like Geraldine said, it's like you're quick to judge these people, but you don't. It's hard to know like their actual intent, and maybe they have their hearts in the right place.
Right, exactly, and I love the sort of nuance that we get.
Yes,
with that too, because Stormpar is ultimately doing good work, but they're being a little removed from the actual communities that are affected, and they're being sponsored by somebody who doesn't have the best intentions.
Yeah.
Right. So.
And unfortunately, sometimes in those situations, you can only do so much, and you have so much control. Otherwise, like, say they did something that guy didn't like, he could pull his sponsorship, and then they don't get what they need.
Exactly. So they felt like they were pigeonholed into only doing the bare minimum when they could have been helping communities.
Right.
So eventually that's why we see Javi leave and kind of redeem himself in a way. We always knew that he was a good guy.
Yeah.
But we see him, go back to his roots and want to help people, which I think is a really powerful moment in the film.
Very powerful.
So the director of this film was Lee Isaac Chung. I've heard a lot of the cast just give huge praises to him, said that he was great to work with. He directed Minari and Abigail Harm. I'm not familiar with him as a director. He hasn't done anything that I've ever seen, but this movie was great in my opinion. Yeah. The writers, we have Mark L. Smith worked on the screenplay. He worked on The Revenant and Seance.
Very fun.
Joseph Kosinski worked on Top Gun Maverick and Tron Legacy. We love Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah,
I actually haven't seen the first one or the new one, which I need to watch them.
We need to watch them together.
I think I just shied away because they've been so in your face that I was like, I'm tired of seeing this shit. Yeah. But I love Glenn Powell. Obviously, I love Miles Teller, so I would love to watch it. But I like to just you know.
That's another one. If they ever put back in 40X, super.
Oh my gosh, yes! I wish that we could have seen Maverick in 40X. That would have been awesome. Michael Crichton and Anne-Marie Martin make a return for this film. They've been credited with creating the characters, so that's probably why a lot of the characters feel so familiar to us. Is because the same writers from the Twister movie. Michael Crichton also wrote Jurassic Park, but the same writers from the original movie helped make the characters for this one.
That's awesome. Yeah. I don't know what it is. Maybe like we keep on saying throughout the episode, there's just a lot of these voices that were integral to giving this movie a similar vibe from the 90s one. And I think that vibe has a lot to do with my enjoyment of it.
Yeah. No, I agree wholeheartedly. And then the producers, Frank Marshall and Patrick Crowley, they both worked on the Jurassic World movies and helped produce those. So I really do think that we get a full sense from these writers of like the thriller, along with the like family themes and connection themes, community, etc. I think that they've really they've made a well-rounded group to make this movie.
That's awesome, because I feel like the original was the same way. Like they really had a star-studded cast and a lot of people who were working on the movie too.
Yeah, I agree. And you can feel it. We already talked about the budget. It was somewhere around 150 to 200 million, and just over box office weekend. In the States, it made 80.5. You said it was, 123 million worldwide so far? So,
yeah.
I mean, the original Twister movie made, 494 million worldwide in its year, 1995, that it came out. It was like the second best-selling movie in theaters that year. So, I expect great things from this movie, especially from what I've seen people promoting on TikTok.
Yeah.
Like, I see so many creators that are our age excited to go and see this movie.
Yeah, I think word of mouth is going to do a lot.
But I also think that, like, our age, like, I mean, at least in my experience, I grew up watching this movie.
Yeah,
so,
me
like,
too.
there's a lot of nostalgia there.
Yeah.
And I think that even, like my family members, like, they grew up watching it. So it just shows that, like, nostalgia definitely does work. It does sell.
It does.
But also, it's just exciting.
Yeah, and I think this is a good movie for all the nostalgia remakes, nostalgia sequels. I think this is a really good movie because it's not too corny. It's not too, like, the story's not too thin or too on the nose, like you said.
I mean, it being just a good movie helped a lot.
Yeah.
I've also heard, like, because they're doing that a lot with, like, movies that, you know, were really big in the 90s. They just did a remake of the Beverly Hills Cop, but it's like the Axel F. I've heard that one is really, really good, and I've heard nothing but good things about it. And I know that a lot of people, like my father, grew up watching them, so, like, he's got a love for those. And I know that nostalgia really does sell, especially if it's done well, and it's not too, like, I don't know, like, if you go back too much, sometimes it can be overwhelming.
Yeah.
Or, like, you're so concerned about tying that story in with the new one. But this one does it so well, where it has its little nudges and, you know, gestures. But then we get an entirely new cast, an entirely new story. And it still has the heart of the previous film and everything. So, I don't know. I enjoyed it thoroughly.
Me too.
And likewise, I don't think that you need to have a connection to the original film to enjoy this one.
Yeah, I don't think so.
So I think it will, like, deepen your experience. You'll notice those sort of homages to the original that will help aid in the nostalgia factor. But if you don't have that nostalgia, you've never seen the original Twister movie, then this one is still a movie that you can really enjoy.
Yeah, you don't need to watch the first one to watch this one at all.
Yeah.
You can enjoy your time just with this one alone.
And even if you go see it in 4DX, it's still a blast.
Yes.
Yeah, it's great, sincerely. And now I have a clip of Anthony Ramos talking about the red carpet premiere.
Yay.
And what his experience was like.
Here's a photo of you and Tom Cruise right there.
Oh man.
How was Tom Cruise?
Yo, Tom was tripping the whole time. Like, so I'm sitting here and Glenn Powell sitting behind me and Daisy sitting behind Glenn, but Tom is sitting like over here and my brother sitting, and Tom is just like, he's just laughing out loud the whole time. And then all of it, like at least 4 times throughout the film, he's hitting me, he's like, Bud, that's great, Bud, that's great. And I'm like, yo, thanks, Tom, I appreciate it, da, da, da. After the 3rd time, I'm like, yo, it's Tom Cruise tripping behind me. Like,
Dude, he's so excited. He loves movies.
he was going crazy the whole time.
That guy loves the business.
Yeah.
He loves everything about the business.
Yeah.
He was banging and hitting your shoulder.
He kept hitting me on my shoulder. I was like, yo, T, you strong, bro, chill, son.
That's so funny. I know he likes movies.
Yeah.
I know he loves blockbusters.
Yeah.
He loves thrillers. And
Yeah.
so it can only make sense that he'd like a movie like this.
But I think that's such a sweet interaction too.
That is.
You know, like silly, of course, in hindsight, but
It
like
makes you think of White Chicks.
yeah,
You know, and
Yeah.
she's like spilling her drink every time. It just makes you think of that and makes me giggle a little bit. But also, like, I also get the same way. Like, the first couple times it's like, okay, but then more than twice, I'm like, what are you
Chill
doing?
out.
Please.
Yeah. But I just thought it was a sweet interaction
Very
to see how supportive other people.
Yeah.
I can only imagine how many actors in Hollywood, especially veteran actors who have been around since the
Yeah.
90s, are appreciating this movie and the new actors that have come along with it.
It's also just cool to see Anthony Ramos get his, stars and stuff because he's
Yeah.
a really good actor. And my first experience with him was Hamilton. And
Me too.
Me too.
And it didn't even dawn on me when I was watching this. I was like, I know I've seen him somewhere, but I can't place it. And then after the fact, I was like, oh shit, that was Hamilton.
Hamilton, In the Heights,
Transformers.
Transformers.
I don't think I
right.
saw that one. I've
Yeah.
only seen the first two. I just didn't watch the other ones.
Yeah.
Late to the game.
Yeah, we love Anthony Ramos. He's
Yeah,
great.
he's great. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and he was great in this movie. I thought he was a very sweet
Oh
character.
yeah, me too. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's safe to say that we all love the movie.
Yeah.
Are we ready to rank it?
Yeah, I mean, I think if I remember right, we all rated or graded Twister very well. I think we were all A.
Yeah.
And do you mind if I go first?
No, go ahead.
I love this movie. I thought it was really fun. I felt like it carried on the same traditions. I felt like there's an argument to be made that the first one had a little bit more heart to it. I don't know why. Maybe just because it's a little older and maybe it's been around longer, so it just feels a lot more solid, close to the ground. Especially the romantic interest between the two characters, the two main characters, between Joe and Bill. And this one, I feel like it's newer. It still has that strong chemistry between two characters. I think this movie is done just a little bit better for me, for my experience, and so I'm giving it an A+.
Okay. How do you feel, Jer?
I think that I agree with all of the sentiments. I guess the only critique that I can say that I do have, actually, is that Helen Hunt was not anywhere near the film.
Yeah.
That's my only, I'm like, dang, it just would have been nice. They had the opportunity, like we mentioned in the theater, they had the perfect opportunity to be like, oh yeah, she's going to her mom's house. Helen Hunt could have been her mom.
Yeah. They sold it like she was going to be too, because the mom comes out of like the shadows.
That's
and then
why
you're like, oh, I don't know who
That's
this is.
why I get the sense that it's not the studio. I think the studio would have wanted her there. I think she might have not wanted
And
her.
She
okay
might have,
too.
and that's totally fine if
Yeah.
she doesn't want to be included in it.
But I
That's
also
cool.
just want the verbal confirmation, I didn't want to do that. I'm like, okay, then that makes sense because I just need to detach and not expect that if they do make more.
Yeah. We
But
don't have a sense of closure here.
Yeah.
We don't get her in it. We don't know if she's out for her own reasons or what.
I know that's a very small critique, but I was just like, oh, no. Helen?
I understand too.
But again,
I don't think it weakens the movie though.
No, it doesn't weaken the movie at all. All the performances were fantastic. Even the asshole guy who works with Javi in the storm part, I was like, ooh, I hate him. He was
good.
critiquing women, and that's just a sign that you're a good actor. If you can really make me get a visceral reaction.
You know
I'm
what?
like,
He reminded me of Henry Cavill.
Yes, I could see
he
it.
looked a lot like Henry Cavill to me.
I could see it. See it.
But
otherwise, no bad things to say about it. I had a blast. It was good. The tension, the chemistry, off the charts. Just
He
so
is
good.
Superman. He's the new Superman.
Oh, oh my god.
That might be.
That's crazy.
Yeah, he's going to be Superman next year.
That's fun.
Well, he looks like Superman.
Makes
so
sense.
It makes sense.
So, yeah, it's validating a little.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I really can't say enough praise about it without being redundant or repetitive in the sense. So I think that to me it's just an A+. It doesn't exceed the previous film. I don't remember exactly what I rated it. I think that
think
they're
it was
both
the same.
equal playing field to me.
Yeah.
They're both
Yeah.
just as good.
Yeah.
I like that. that.
I agree with everything that both of you have said. Literally, we're all on the same page.
Fine.
One thing I will say is that I think the original movie Twister fell short just a little bit on the romance for me in 2024 goggles. Right?
Oh,
I think it
'cause
was
you're like billing shit.
pretty much, yeah, no offense. I loved Bill Paxton's character in the original film, but I definitely see some of the 90s, he's just a man character. It doesn't really matter what he does. It's going to be seen as being okay or being right, and he's not a fully developed character in that movie, in my opinion.
And you felt like Joe could have done better.
What do you mean?
You really liked Joe, and you thought she could do better than Bill.
Oh, I see what you mean. I don't think of it that far. I think it's just more
I agree.
It felt like a 90s movie to me, where it's okay, maybe this relationship isn't the most realistic thing, but we're playing it up
But
for
also,
Hollywood standards.
To me, in my opinion on the original film, they were about to get divorced for a reason, and then they get back together. So my brain's like, girl,
Yeah.
you dickmatized.
It does. I had that kind of a feeling too. I just feel like I was saying with 2024 goggles, when you're viewing it now in the modern times, it felt a little bit okay, well, realistically, if a typical woman who's going through a divorce or almost to go through a divorce, she's probably not going to get back with the guy. And if they do, it's probably not going to be all roses and daisies and like everything's good and fine and amazing when they get back together.
Yeah.
You know, but it was Hollywood in the 90s. I understand
They do
it's a
that a
90s
lot.
movie, so I'm not going to critique it super hard on that. But with this new movie, I think that the romance feels really nice. It's like a really good romance. They have good banter. They've got good chemistry, of course. And it's just, it feels more realistic. Like we were talking about, they don't even kiss in the movie, which in my opinion is good because it lets us breathe. It lets the relationship feel a little bit more real and a little bit less like it was on like a play.
Gives it time to grow.
Exactly.
Truly.
Exactly. You know, like they don't really know who they are. They don't know if they're saying that they're boyfriend, girlfriend, but we see like Tyler go into the airport because he wants to spend more time with Kate and he
Yeah.
doesn't want her to leave. And we don't know if he's going to go with her to New York or if he's going to convince her to stay. But, you know, we can interpret it whatever. Of course they stay because of weather. But, you know, we see them wanting to interact with each other more, and I think that feels more fulfilling to me than rushing them into a kiss on screen.
Another thing too is like with the 2024 goggles that you said,
Yeah.
we don't have to deal with a love triangle.
Yes.
And like
stress
we're
me
a
out.
movie
It's
where we
interesting.
have two male characters. In the 90s, two male characters and a girl, love triangle. And
Yeah.
this one you get to see like one of the male characters be supportive for the guy to the other guy to go for the girl.
Which is really interesting because it's mentioned multiple times in the movie how Javi does like Kate.
Yeah.
Like it's laid down
Kind
for
of
you.
like nice guy TM. He kind of felt a little rejected, then he's like push her to the curb a little bit, but then he makes up for it.
Yeah, but it's not like overdone.
Yeah.
It feels
and
very
that's
realistic.
healthy. That's
Yeah.
healthy.
Yeah, and you know, and he's supporting, like you said. He's not like
Yeah, when
don't
Tyler
do it.
runs into the airport, he's like, "Attaboy."
yeah, you know, and it's because he cares about Kate.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, he's not worried about himself as much in that situation. It feels so nice and so wholesome, and I just love that. I feel like they really, like, that's what they expanded on the most in this movie, and I think it's great. I think it's what the new movies needed.
One thing that I will say that the first film does better is the house. The house scene, the practical effects of them driving. We're
Yeah.
going in.
Yeah.
Like, we don't get that in this
We
new
don't
movie.
get that.
Yeah.
I thought we would. It's
Yeah.
something,
Something
like
would have been
Yeah.
really cool.
like
but
that in
Yeah.
the oil tanker.
Yeah.
but I mean they kind of makes up for it, I guess, with the cool fire tornado type
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah,
That was
cool.
really
Yeah.
cool.
But what we would like to see if they continue to make more movies is more practical effects,
More
I think.
practical
You know, let us,
effects.
you know, drive through some real harsh debris. Let's see some houses get really blown around.
Yeah.
You know, that would be really fun, and I think it would make the experience even better.
But also like the heightened anxiety that we get in the first Twister film when they go to get her Aunt Meg.
Yeah,
and
out of
like
the
the
house.
house is like gonna teetering
Yes.
on like
Yes.
falling right
More of
then.
that.
Like that puts me on the edge of my seat. It scares me. I'm like, oh no, oh my god, there's also a dog. Oh no. Like
Yeah.
I feel like the version of that in this movie was like the swimming pool scene, like after
Yeah.
the rodeo,
Yeah.
which was still really tense. And again, another
Yeah.
like learning moment for me where like he kept on telling the service worker not to stand up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he stands up and gets blown away.
Yeah.
That's
So I
unfortunate.
really like that scene too. But you're
Yeah.
right. In the future, I hope they do make more of these.
Yeah, but-
and yeah, sorry not to interrupt your grading. What do you grade the movie?
A+
Okay.
from me. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I love both of these movies for the same and different reasons, and I think I'm going to be watching them a lot more in the future. And I think that this is a great, you know, successor to the first one. It's got the same heart, it's got the same soul, new characters, but like I'm still just as attached, and I want to see more. I really want to see more.
Yeah, and I feel like we could rank them, I guess, but I think I'd rather just rank the franchise
Yeah.
as an A.
Yeah.
It's a great
Yeah.
franchise. It's
It
good.
is.
So
It
I
is.
recommend watching it.
They
Both
all
of them.
have like a crazy rewatch value. Like
Oh yeah. If you have a chance to see it in 40x, please see it in 40x. It's so good.
it is
It's
very
fun.
very
Yeah.
much fun. Again, for my first experience, that was the perfect film. You
Yeah,
should go see that.
it was great. Did you guys have a favorite tornado or tornado scene in the
Oh.
movie? I mean, we have a lot.
Yes.
We've got like the twin tornadoes, the fire tornado. We get the hotel scene. We get the movie theater scene.
I just loved watching Tyler shoot those rockets.
That was
up
that
on-
was great.
That was
Yeah,
cool.
that was.
It was
great.
very funny,
Yeah.
very like yeehaw.
Yeah, and I just love seeing them dig in too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that
I
was
loved
really
how the
fun.
truck digs in. You know, that's something that I'm pretty sure, like I'm 99% certain that some storm chaser vehicles can do is to dig themselves in if they're one of the vehicles that's meant to get closer to the tornadoes. So it was really cool seeing that implemented and how he's literally shooting rockets and
Yeah.
flares up in there. That's hilarious and so fun.
I don't think I had a favorite tornado. They all just looked terrifying to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's weird framing the question that way.
Yeah,
Your
I
favorite
guess
tornado.
so.
No, I
Yeah.
don't think it's a weird way to frame it, but I mean, like, which one had like the bigger impact on you? I definitely think the one at the very end had the most impact
Yeah.
on me.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
the movie theater tornado.
Because I was like, oh shit, we ain't gonna live. Nobody's gonna live. And I was being a pessimist, and I thought she's gonna do the thing, but somehow she's not gonna survive it.
I love that for a character too. Like, hey, I have to do this. I mean, from the beginning, being scared of this and just like not minding sacrificing herself to save this community.
I really enjoyed the rodeo scene.
Yeah.
And all of that. It leads up into the hotel scene. So like just both of those I really enjoy. And I really loved there was this part where both Storm Parr and Tyler's team, the Tornado Wranglers, were driving down the same road and these two tornadoes show up. And they're like, oh, look, they're dancing. And they're like swinging around each other. And I really liked that part of the movie. That's what stands out to me. I think that's what I'm always going to think of when I think of Twisters, is I'm going to think of the two tornadoes that are in that field. So
That's really cool. Something I would have liked to see in this movie that would make it worse. They're called the Tornado Wrangler, right?
Yeah.
I would have loved to see Tyler
With a rope.
with a rope, like shit, and then that song is like all the pretty ladies around the world.
I don't know it.
Try to catch a tornado.
That would be funny.
that would be very
Yeah.
silly. That's
Yeah.
very cartoony.
Yeah.
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 Maybe in the sequel.
Maybe. Maybe they'll have their own storm chasing TV show.
That
or
would
their
be
YouTube
cool.
video. Maybe that could be like the intro. It's like a little cartoon guy.
Oh yeah,
Cartoon Tyler
yeah,
wrangling
that's
a
great.
Make it
Yeah.
more meta, more campy.
Yeah, it'd be fun and cute.
It would be fun.
But I think it's safe to say that we love the movie. We're all excited to watch it again at some point, and we hope that everybody that's listening to this watches it too. If you haven't seen it in theaters, please go see it in theaters while it's still there. Help support them and hopefully convince them to make a sequel. Another,
Yes.
like a real sequel.
Please.
I want to see more of these characters. They're so great. And just like tornadoes, your periods don't have to suck. Our partner Vampons is here to stake your old, unreliable tampons and bury them 6 feet deep where they belong. With Vampon's Sinister Embrace Comfort Fit, braided end for superior protection, and hypoallergenic organic cotton, they promise to be extra absorbent, extra reliable, and extra safe for your body when you need it most. Vampons offer a 30% higher absorbency compared to the standard 100% organic cotton tampons, and 300% less awkwardness compared to your mother's tampons, all while being BPA-free and HSA/FSA eligible. What could possibly make Vampons even better? Refills, or rethrills as they call it, are only $9.99 USD and help keep our world safe from mortal perils such as single-use plastics and packaging. Oh, and the company is also owned by real women who may or may not be real vampires. Use the code FrightFlyPod, all caps, no spaces, to receive a discount on your next order.
And another thing I want us to tell everybody is thank you for watching, and we're going to be taking a little bit of a break. Follow us at FrightFlyPod. Follow us on Spotify.
Email us at FrightFlyPod.
Send us your hate mail.
We'll see you guys next week.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Fright or Flight, a Live Oaks Village production. This episode was hosted by Geraldine Johnson and Saul Alberto Arzmendi Ochoa. Produced by me, Bailey B. Edited by Geraldine Johnson and music composition by Saul Alberto Arzmendi Ochoa.